So welcome to another episode of Hacking into Security. So today we're taking a different direction. We've spoken to a few people that have got into the industry recently. Today I'm very, very happy to be joined by Chris Rock. So Chris, I've known for how many? 4 years, maybe, or so?
4 years, yeah.
So Chris has got a very interesting background, and I'm going to read the bio out from basically his DEF CON CFP. So Chris has been active in the security industry for over 25 years. Chris presented "I Will Kill You" at DEF CON 23 and "How to Overthrow a Government" at DEF CON 24. So not controversial at all.
No, I try to keep mine really clean topics.
Chris has run a security pen testing company for over 10 years. Now you're CISO. Actually, do you say CISO or CISO?
Doesn't really matter. I do the security shit for SIEMonster.
So it's interesting. I think most people I speak to within the US say CISO, and I think a lot of people in Australia say CISO. But yeah, you're CISO doing security shit and co-founder of SIEMonster. So SIEMonster started in 2015 by a team of hackers. After years of working in the pen testing space, they realized that there was a gap in the SIEM market for affordable, scalable, open source alternatives to existing solutions. And something that's not there, but I'm very proud of, is that you were my first ever customer, and helped us get on our way. So thank you.
Yeah, that was great. I remember talking to you. You were working for a big recruiting company, and you're itching to get out. And I gave you a little bit of push, and you went with it with a pregnant wife. Went bang.
Yeah, great timing. Well, it worked out in the end anyway.
It did.
So usually my first question is, who are you? But I think we've give you a quick rundown already. Something I'm always interested in, I guess there's lots of different reasons for this, but from your perspective, why are you in security?
Yeah, so a really good question. I've always been security minded, like forever, and like pre me being in InfoSec, I was actually I went through the police academy. I was an armed guard. I did an apprenticeship locksmithing course as well. When my uncle was a locksmith, so I've always been intrigued, and I love security. And mate, I've been hacking since I was 11 illegally, and so for me to then turn into the InfoSec sector it was a natural fit. It's what I've done. It's what I was born to do, and like I live and breathe it. I do this stuff 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, and I couldn't think of anything that I'd want to do. This is my leisure as well, and it's not just my job.
It's funny you saying that. Last year I was at B-Sides Canberra, and we were out on one of the nights, God knows, 2-3 o'clock in the morning or something.
On the piss?
Maybe. And one of my mates, we went back to our hotels, and he went back to go and do bug bounties. And again, it's not just because it's not work. It's not because he needs the money. Just he enjoys it. It's what he does for fun. It's just it's a passion.
So I've never done bug bounties. For me, it's really good practice. But for me, I'd rather hack a real target. Like if I want to learn to use a sword, I want to chop someone's head off. Like it's as simple as that. I don't want to just stop before I get to somebody's neck. So I actually want to go right through. And I know the right answer is do bug bounties, do what's online. But for me, it was like, get your hands dirty, play with it, pivot once you're in a company, move around, make sure you don't get caught. And then you learn really fucking quickly on the job training. So I'm a big fan of that.
Good. So you mentioned obviously you've had a bit of a variety of background already, but how did you get into security to where you are now?
Yeah, so I entered in the information technology, IT path. So I worked in the banking sector for 10 years first. I worked at all the Aussie banks, ANZ, Westpac, blah, 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 and learnt in the banking sector. The beauty of learning in the banking sector is you get a wide range of technologies. Everything's critical, important, 99.99 uptime. You're also dealing with industry that has always got money. Like my dad always said to me, is like, you can go get a job in retail or you can go get a job in a bank. Banks have always got money. Like you're always going to have a job. And he was right. So I used to I got in through the IT space, and then I was working things with like ATM, EPOS,
Nice.
core banking. And when you actually work with core banking, IT, and then you pivot to security because there's a requirement or a need, it's very easy. Like once you know the IT in and out, moving to security is simple. It's I see a lot of people with imposter syndrome. It's because they go in as a consultant. I mean, you know what it's like when you go to a consultancy firm, you do 3 weeks on a job. It takes you 3 weeks to learn what the hell this organization is doing in the first place. But by having that core banking experience, I could then understand that perfectly, and then I could apply security over the top of that. And I think that's important for new people, is get in and stay in and stick to the one company for a couple of years to get the hang of it. And as exciting as consulting is, going from gig to gig, you don't learn. You have to be really quick on your feet to learn infrastructure in 3 weeks and then apply what you've learned in those 3 weeks. You know what it's like. You get a new job at any place. I get a job in a bank. It takes me 3 months to work out what the fuck's up and what the fuck's down, let alone having to apply my knowledge to that sector, like in any job. So
scratching the surface, aren't you, really?
Yeah, exactly. So consulting only when you've done 10 to 12 years, I'd say, is, and it's good for the company too. I mean, they know who wants a consultant on site that's only had 2 years worth of training. Like, you're fucking useless after 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, you really need to know what the fuck you're doing before you then go tell a client who's spending $2,500 a day on what they should be doing. So.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, again, I guess that comes from experience, and I guess talking from experience, I guess just for some context, obviously I've mentioned you're co-founder running your own business. Just give people, I guess, a bit of a background on what you're up to right now. What does SIEMonster do?
Yeah, so I'll just go back one step. So after I did banks, I then saw a deficiency in the penetration testing market. So we would have pen testers come in and they would say, you're deficient here or deficient there. And what I found is they were using automated tools, the equivalent of the NASS's of the today, or those sort of tools. And so what we used to do is we changed the banners on all the targets. So instead of it saying IIS 9, it would say Solaris 40. And then all their tools would look up these headers, and then their tools would be useless. And it was embarrassing. So they had to actually ask us to change the headers back. So seeing the pen testers, the PwC, Deloitte, the big four accounting firms doing pen testing, this is back in 2010. We saw a deficiency in the market. So we thought, what, let's set up our own pen testing firm. So I did pen testing around the world for about 10 years in my own company with some key guys that I taught along the way. So I did security training, hacker training. And then students that were really good, I said, you can come work for me. So students who would actually hack my laptop during the training of the course said, boom, I want you in. So I did pen testing for 10 years in my own firm. And then again, the same thing happened. One of our customers wanted a SIEM solution. For those that don't know, Security Information Event Management, Blue Scope Steel. And they didn't want to pay the price of Splunk. It was $750K at the time.
Wow.
So they asked us to develop our own SIEM platform. Now we're not SIEM. We're not a software shop. So we thought, we'll have a look what's out there. And we saw all the other products out there: the OpenSOC, Cisco OpenSOC, Elastic, Elasticsearch. And then so we then adapted that over the next 4 years and built a SIEM platform. And so I was the founder of or co-founder of SIEMonster, and that took off. We have a lot of customers around the world. So you asked me what I'm doing now. I'm the CISO of SIEMonster. Office in New York and Melbourne, and we've got customers, a lot of university customers in US, Canada, and UK, and it's an affordable SIEM solution.
That's great. It's interesting. I remember us talking again back then. I know you're in Melbourne today, but I guess from a business perspective, you were starting to expand into the US, and obviously now it's definitely gone that way. It's a big space, this industry, and people I think sometimes forget that is that we live in our small little bubble sometimes geographically, but there's a big wide world of things happening out there.
Oh, I mean, totally, you're spot on, Ricky. I mean, the Australian market is just shit small compared to the US market. And I mean, I was raised in Melbourne, blah blah blah. When I went to New York, for example, and then I was speaking to one of my customers and said, in Texas alone, we have 1,200 banks in Texas alone. Whoa. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we've got the top, we've got the big four and probably another 150 credit unions on top of that in Australia. And this one state has 1,200. And here I'm trying to win business in pissy old Australia when there's just the US market alone, let alone Europe, Asia, the Middle East. So we made the decision very early on to go to the US. The Australian government helped out. We went through the Austrade program, 3 months in San Francisco. I then did 9 months in New York, and in 2018, and then again 2018 and 19, and then so we're in New York and Melbourne now.
That's fantastic. Okay, cool. So obviously, it's a lot has changed in that time as well. You mentioned obviously from hacking as an 11-year-old, and now it's an actual job. I guess what changes have you seen over the industry over the last 15, 20, 25 years?
To be honest, it's exactly the same. I know that sounds like a weak answer, but everything's exactly the same. I mean, as an 11-year-old, I used to hack, and now two things happen. Companies ask me to hack, and then rich individuals in the Middle East and foreign governments ask me to hack too.
Oh, wow.
There's no difference there. There's no difference. I walk both paths. I'm a white hat hacker and a black hat hacker. I've always admitted to that. For me, it's exactly the same. It's just targets. The targets are the same. Maybe obviously later technology, stuff like that. But in terms of the industry, no, a lot more pretenders in the industry now. So a lot of big noters on Twitter. And I know a lot of your young people probably follow people on Twitter thinking, I'll enter through that space. Everyone on Twitter's an arsehole. Like, I'm an arsehole on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just avoidable.
your tweet the other day about...
Which one was that?
Offering Bitcoin.
Bitcoin for the first person, the three people that like it. Yeah. Look, I mean, I follow rock stars on Twitter, and they're all fuckers. You know what I mean? Like, you meet them in person, they're dipshits. They haven't done anything in their career, to be honest, mate. You know what I mean? So, young guys, young girls in your industry, get the fuck off Twitter, learn your craft, learn it hard, and then you'll be doing whatever the hell you want to do.
So, when obviously you're doing whatever you want to do, in terms of you've started your own businesses and had success, I guess what's helped you in your career to date?
Yes. So to be honest, the best thing that ever happened to me is one of my wife's nephew came to live with us when he was 17, and this kid had already finished university and as a 17-year-old, and now as a lecturer. And I know you're giving me that funny look right now. He was one of those, those kids that finished university like Doogie Howser, like at 14, and he'd gone through university, and now he's a lecturer. And at that time, I think I was 24. I had my MCSC. I think I was king shit, and maybe a Solaris cert as well. Probably, and CEA, probably version fucking 2 back then. But this guy was an MCSC trainer, and he was 17. Wow. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to compete with this fucker for the rest of my life. Like, people like that in my life. So for him, he was always been the explosion under my ass to always want to learn and study. And the thing with me is I used to be the CEO of CISO, and I stepped back so I could do my research, so I could do my next DEF CON talk and my next NDA talk later this year. But I love research, and the more I can do with research and study something that I love is key for me. So I pick an area of interest, and it just comes to me. I looked at some of your other talks, and I saw some people said you study areas and blah, blah. For me, it just hits me like a ton of bricks. Like when I did the I Will Kill You talk, for me, it was like, I saw a news article where letters were sent out to 300 people that they're dead, and here's your death certificate. I'm thinking, how does that fucking happen? And for me, it's like, that doesn't sound logical. In my head, a doctor goes out, fills a certificate out, boom. But in the hospital system, and it's a tick box option that goes through that way. So ideas will just come to me, and then I'll just run research. And I spend every free moment. Sometimes I should be working, but I'm just doing research into a topic of interest. And I try to cover topics that haven't been covered before, maybe a little bit on the edge. But only because no one's looking at them, you know what I mean? Like, if everyone's looking at them because it's illegal or you shouldn't be looking at that, it's like, no, fuck that. That's like, red flag to a bull for me.
Okay. So with your exposure, which is not just like a local, but you've obviously now got more awareness internationally what's happening, lots of different companies, Europe, US, and I guess regionally. Where do you see, I guess, opportunities for people out there, if there are any? From a career perspective.
From a career perspective, and here's is what I always told anyone that I've worked with is, your career is going to be long. Your career is going to could be 30 to 40 years in InfoSec. And obviously it'll like me, I've gone from, IT to, pen testing to SIEM. and who the fuck knows what I'll be doing in a couple of years' time. But the thing is, it's a long career, and the last thing you want to do is go into an industry where you haven't had the training. So when a doctor becomes a doctor, they do the 6 years, they do 3 years at a hospital, and then they're a doctor, and then they do surgical school and blah, blah, blah. They never have the imposter syndrome because they know what the fuck they're doing. When I have a leak in my front yard, like fucking water's flying in the middle of the air, and my plumber drives past, sees the thing, digs the hole, jumps in the hole, grabs the tool out of his back pocket, clamps it, fixes it. He's not wondering whether he's right to be in that sector or not. He uses the right tool for the job, knows what the fuck he's done, and he's done it a million times. So if I could just tell everybody, you got a long career, don't take shortcuts. Learn the fundamentals. You're going to get a lot of people saying, oh, you don't need a degree, and you may not need a degree. Or you can go do coding boot camp and you're fine. That's not true. You need to know how CPU works, operating system works, networking works, Linux, Windows, whatever the fuck. You need to know it all. And then you focus on a bit that interests you. Don't take shortcuts or you'll wear it for the rest of your life. And there's people, peers of mine, who still have that anxiety. It's like you have anxiety because you know what the fuck you're doing. It's as simple as that. If you knew what you're doing, you wouldn't even think twice about getting on stage. And of course, you might be shy on stage or embarrassed. That's normal. But if you know what the fuck you're talking about, it just comes out. Whether, you know, a doctor doing surgery or a plumber fixing a fucking pipe, you've done it so many times. You don't care whether it's a Windows tool or a Linux tool. You don't get in those debates. You use the best tool for the job. And if I tell young people, don't take shortcuts. If you have to do 10 years in IT before you move security, that's the best thing that could fucking happen to you. You're not going to miss out on anything. Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
I try and share a similar message that sometimes the best way to get into security is not even work in security. Go and work in something else and learn the fundamentals.
Spot on. I didn't do it that way. I mean, how many years did I do before I even went into InfoSec? Yeah. 10 years. I mean, and the best thing I ever did, because the shortcuts I used to do when I used to do the drop-down list, you know, this cipher, that cipher, and whatever the laziest option I chose, because it was easier to do a SPF certificate with a bit that was that long than that long, is the same mistakes that every other administrator makes. So when you're hacking and you're going, oh yeah, I remember I used to do that too because it was fucking easier, then you'll know, or didn't change the password or the default for this or that. It's just common knowledge. So I mean, you don't need to be a black belt in your first 5 to 10 years. Just do the fundamentals and shit just works.
I see a lot of people eager to go from basically nothing or degree to pen tester. And yeah, I mean, obviously there's lots of different jobs out there, but it's a very common theme that I see. And I try to say to people, there are more jobs out there than pen testing. And two, you know, you need to learn more. Like I've got one friend who has done that transition, but he's quite rare. But there's a lot of people that find out about certain types of roles at university and then they want to become that. But there's a lot of upskilling to get to that sort of level.
All my staff have had 20 years of experience before they're even pen testers. It was a 15-year minimum in the industry before you came and did pen testing with me. Obviously, I took on interns and stuff like that. As you know, one of the first staff members was an intern. But in terms of what I wanted highly skilled people. And you want to be a black belt in the first year, of course. Who doesn't? That's a normal trait. But don't expect to be a black belt, you know, 5th Dan in the first 5 to 10 years. That's the next part of your life, and there's plenty of time to enjoy that too. And
yeah, I thought we're all in a rush these days.
Always in a rush, because like who doesn't want to be, the superstar on Twitter or LinkedIn or CISO of Facebook? Of course you want to be that, but look at all these. They're not young people. They're all, they're heading towards the 40 to 50-year-old. They've done their time. We all want to take shortcuts. That's normal.
I'm nearly 40 or 30, 35. We can call 40 young still if you like.
They do. Thank you.
So with I guess if what you know now, if you were going back 20 odd years and starting out your career, what would you do? Like if you wanted to... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. I would not change anything. I know that sounds like a weak answer, but the best thing I ever did is get the fundamentals. I mean, one of my first jobs was in a computer shop. I worked with a Asian guy who bought stuff with cash from a van that drove past, and then we sold stuff that was we would never do tax free. put it that way. So all of a sudden you learn something that, you know, as a 18-year-old boy going from a middle class family, I didn't understand how, you know, this whole, you know, other world works, just cash only stuff.
Yeah.
And then I put computers together. So I did that every day, and I did, like, you know, 8 computers a day I put together. So I would change nothing. You know what I mean? Start at the bottom and enjoy the road up, and you're going to see some weird shit and good stuff and bad stuff. And like I said, just try to stick to, you know, the banking sector, because you'll learn a lot, and it'll be a very formal structure, and you'll learn a lot of things like architecture, which is key, because when you then work for any company, whether you then work in a water board or electricity company and stuff like that, and a vendor comes to you and says, oh, we want to throw this bloody, you know, load balancer firewall next generation bullshit. And then you can look at it, and you can actually look at the vendor specs. You can look at how they're doing it, what architecture they're using, the flaws in the tech. You know, using Cisco and Juniper as 2 different types of devices, as in like a DR for security. Yeah, that sort of infrastructure, I think I would not change the way I've learned. You just follow the trends. If I went into pen testing now, and I know this is probably going to piss off a few of your listeners, but pen testing's, I'm not saying it's dead, but it's fucking crowded. When I went in, there was the big 4, and then there was a few little small companies, and now it's like, it's a service, it's a commodity item. I can get a quote from 20 different pen testers in Australia, or 1,000 in the US. You're going to learn a lot, which is great, but you're always going to be fighting for business and stuff like that. Good learning curve. Work in a SOC, man, that's awesome. You know, go through that whole forensic. Where did that IP come from? I came from Pakistan. Does that mean it came from Pakistan, or did 13 hops before it came from that target? Like, learn your target. When I compromise a host, I might compromise 13 hosts before I hit my end host. So I might compromise a hotel in Pakistan. I might compromise a person's house in Sri Lanka, and then have my attacks go back and forth between the 2 countries, knowing there's no extradition treaty between them. And then I'll hit my target. So as a SOC analyst, you need to have that in your head about what you see, may not be what you see. So don't go start attacking that, you know, poor Pakistani hotel when they're simply just a hop in a target.
So that's interesting. So for anyone who, because I find I talk to a lot of people, and you mentioned about sort of doctors earlier, and I sort of see it in a similar way where people say, I want to get into security, and I relate it to healthcare. It's like, well, okay, it's like saying to you, I want to get into healthcare. Well, what do you want to be? A doctor, nurse, pediatrician, dentist? I want to work in security. Okay, but what do you actually want to do in security? There's all these different areas with different sorts of skill sets. So for people that may be coming around to the idea, actually, yeah, blue team sounds more interesting than I realized, I guess what would be some valuable skills that people should be learning or picking up?
Yeah, so in that perfect example, whether you're blue team or red team, you need to know how things hang together, and you're going to get that in a land administrator, a job, or a architect role, or a SOC analyst, how shit works in a real company. So you're going to see, you know, the front end, you're going to see the middleware, and you're going to see the back end database. And you might think that, you know, I'm doing a SQL injection, but how does that work? How are you moving between the layers? Just because there's a padlock and that's secure between your endpoint and the web server, what happens when it gets decrypted after it hits the IIS or Apache server? Then that packet then moves back to the middleware. Is it encrypted on that second path? When it goes from the middleware to the database, is that encrypted as well? Or did they not do encryption end to end? And so you may not know that. So the trick is, if you can get that basic non-security, how stuff hangs together in a real environment, then the security stuff is a beautiful bolt-on at the end. Like you said, you become a doctor first, and then you do another 3 years and you become a surgeon. But you've got the you know, the basis beforehand, and you know what doctors prescribe. You know when you're doing surgery, and you know what medication were you on. Are you currently on? You can start putting shit together. You know why people do things a certain way. It's the same in our industry. IT first, security second, and not in reverse. You can't do security first if you don't know how Windows is built. You don't know about, you know, how Windows or Linux or shit hangs together first. And you'll learn that if you do the IT part first.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for your time on that. And I guess a question that I'm always keen to ask people, what's your opinion on the cybersecurity skill shortage headlines?
Yeah, so and I think the vein of my conversation so far is there's a lot of pretenders in the industry. So there's a lot of people pretending to have skills that they don't have, and they'll say that in an interview, but it'll come out really quickly in a technical interview whether they have the skills or not. If people are going to go through uni security or high school CIS, CH, OSCP, they're going to come unstuck very quickly. So if I'm employing somebody, to be honest, I wouldn't hire if I wouldn't hire an intern, no problems, and train them the way I want to be trained, and then I'd throw them into certain areas to learn. Go install this, go and install that, and then go that path. There is a shortage. There is a skill shortage. There's a lot of pretenders out there, and you've got to cut through that crap to get it. And especially when I'm hearing you having to communicate to people going through, I want to go to security, and they don't know what they want to do, or going straight out of uni into security. And I think that's the wrong path. So, short answer, yeah, there is a shortage of skill. There's not a shortage of applicants out there.
So yeah, that's a fair way to look at it.
And everyone I have to pay to bring in my business is anywhere between 100 and 250k employee. And now if I employ a 250k employee, they better know their shit. I don't want somebody who's done 2 years and just pretending, because I can get anyone to do that. I need someone who really knows their stuff. But if I'm getting a 100k or a 60k intern, I know what to expect. That there's going to be a big up ramp for them. But if they're committed and really, like I said about my nephew, if they're going to bust their ass, then there's a 60 to 250k is an easy path to go to if they're committed. As long as they're not 9 to 5ers, as long as they're prepared to do a 7-day week and committed.
It's not that sort of industry, unfortunately. So again, when it's like it's your passion, you're doing it anyway. It's not just a job.
Which is great for my career. I mean, when I got people wanting to do 9 to 5, it's like, man, that's awesome. If you're only doing 9 to 5, you're not even scratching the surface. So
it's quite scary, because when I'm sort of qualifying potential people that we're going to work with for customers, I do ask the question, like I said to you in the beginning, why security? And some of the answers are quite scary when people actually have just said money or for job security. And those answers, that's not someone who's going to go the extra mile to learn stuff that they need to, that's going to help them in their career. They're just going to get by.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I do research for a year. I mean, I could push trolleys at bloody Woolworths for $12 an hour and would earn more than the research that I come out with at the end does. But I don't do it for the money. I do it for the learning, and I do it like presenting to the community. I mean, it's easy to be a CISO in the US at $500,000 to $1 million a year versus, research, which pays absolutely nothing. But you do it, as I said, I'm in it for the long haul. I do these DEF CON talks, not only for the DEF CON talk, the research, but it's also marketing. I mean, I'm on a 40 to 50 year roadmap as I'm telling your young recruits to do a 10, 20, 30 year roadmap. So I've got my own roadmap, whether that be public speaking or whatever, but that's my path.
Just on that note, I asked you earlier about sort of what's helped in your career. So is that something you've helped you in terms of the presentations, getting out there?
Got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. You got to have, what are you trying to achieve? Like when I did DEF CON 23, I Will Kill You 2015. Obviously, I needed a topic, the timing, all that sort of stuff. But I was just about to launch my security SIEM product, so I needed some background. I'm well known in Australia. No one knows who the fuck I am in the US. So all of a sudden, I could then launch into the US. So I did back-to-back talks for DEF CON. That was pre-planned. And then now that I'm spending a lot of time in New York, because we're between New York and Australia, I need to then further that even further. So I need to catapult that section of my career into the research a little bit further. So
yeah, makes sense.
Have a plan and just execute. And it's not an overnight plan. It's, like I said, in my case, it was a 5-year plan for my speaking circuit.
Awesome. Chris, thanks for your time and thanks for sharing your insight. I guess everybody's got a different journey in the industry, and I guess that's part of the topic of this. There's not one way into it, but there's lots of ways it can go. And I guess the more experienced you are and the more you see internationally, there's hopefully advice that people can pick up along the way as well.
Yeah, thanks for the asking. A lot of people don't ask. A lot of people think, I have young people who make contact with me, and I just want to how did you get in the industry, and those sort of conversations, and you're a rock star and all that sort of bullshit. But it's nice to be asked the beginning, so I can at least then show people there is, like you said, there's different paths. And people might look at my talk that you and I have done today and go, oh, that's horse shit. I'll do half of that. I'll do a quarter of that. But it doesn't really matter. It's their journey. It's not my journey. I can just say what's worked for me, and then they can take what they want from that.
Excellent. Chris, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Ricky.
See ya.
See ya.